Okay, so the curves here are already done, so I'll take you through these ones a bit further on in the edit when it makes sense, and I'll explain what they're doing and how to work with them. That's why there is extra contrast at the moment. This style, you need the curves, so we'll go over that a little later on, just to brighten things up. And now it's even more obvious what the curves are doing. It really adds richness. His style in particular has a good amount of matte, so you'll see why that is so important later on. And then we'll bring down the temperature because of all the tungsten, a little to the green. We're already a long way. Blacks, because we have so much contrast from the blacks and the curves. White, so I honestly just look at like his hat and stuff like that. Might have to come back and fix some things. Shadows, so I'm just thinking detail. How much detail do we see? And then highlights, very often down, because this is what a lot of those people that get the matte look use, is bringing down of the highlights. Really flattens the image. Touch less contrast, as you can see. And then we pretty much have all our texture and contrast done. So we dropped clarity by 10 for a softness, slight bloom, texture. We're also gonna bloom it with dropping the dehaze. I might bring back the texture. And what we'll do, we'll jump to highlights before HSL. We want more blues. We're still very warm in the entire image, so we'll go 7 saturation. It's only a very subtle amount, so like I'm just looking at the brightest parts, and it's in this white sign here is the easiest way to tell how much blue we have to add in to make it white. I'm going to keep sharpening down so we don't get too much of a digital look. Grain a bit. So all our hues are pretty off. Let's start with some obvious ones. So saturation. Now, it takes a while to learn things like this, but saturation changes your hue sometimes. Like it looks like it does. It looks more orange by taking out some saturation of the yellows, for example. But we're gonna up the yellows. We'll actually come back up here and drop the saturation entirely. Gets a bit closer and a touch of vibrance. I think it's very consistent with what he does on Instagram. Oranges, his feed definitely has strong yellows and oranges. Green, there's a little bit of green, let's take it out. Blue, bring down the blue because he has strong oranges like throughout the whole image. I usually bring purple and magenta down roughly in line with everything. A pop to the yellows, down in the oranges a bit. Kind of creates contrast between the yellows and the oranges in terms of brightness. It can look good. And then the yellows a little to the left for more of an orange. Back up top, let's just cool it down a bit more. No, it's about right. Maybe there's too much yellow, like if we go to his, this is ours. Maybe back off on the yellows a bit, even more towards the oranges, and even the oranges towards the reds. Then we go back to his, back to ours, and then desaturate. Maybe luminance of the yellows can, and then just maybe it's overall it's too warm. You can see it's maybe we need a touch of like red or purple. So let's bring that back. Now let's go back and forth. The reason behind some of these. Okay, so this one, the matte look, this is how you do it. It is a bringing down, a capping off of the highlights and the curves. Very often with the sliders, we get a fade here in the curves by bringing it up. So like I looked at this a lot while editing this image because it's a slow transition of very darks to shadows, and you can see it has a lot of color in it as well, so that helps me realize how much red There should be in the shadows. Blue is pulled out, so we've got a lot of warmth through the mids to the highlights. And then the greens and reds are very similar, apart from the shadows. So you get this rich purpleness, and then we get warmth throughout a lot of the image.